Hi there, Mr. Holcomb here with another episode of The Math Behind the Modules. Welcome to Lesson 13, Checking for Identical Triangles. Okay, opening exercise. List all the conditions that determine unique triangles. Okay, so what they're talking about is angle construction and what do we need to guarantee that two triangles are unique. And the first one I would use would be if all three sides are congruent in each triangle. That's the side-side-side theorem. We also have two sides and an included angle, and when you say included angle, it goes in the middle, side angle side. We also have two angles with an included side, which is ASA. So we have side, 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 angle, side, angle, side, angle. And then okay, and the next one is if we have two angles and a side opposite one of those given angles. Angle, angle, side. And then two sides and a non-included angle, provided the angle is 90 degrees or greater. So that's SSA if the angle is greater than or equal to 90 degrees. Remember, an acute does not guarantee that. There's two possible triangles. And then two sides and a non-included angle, provided that the side adjacent to the angle is shorter than the side opposite. Okay, I'm not going to write that, but there they are. So how are the terms identical and unique related? Okay, so when drawing a triangle under a given condition, the triangle will either be identical or non-identical to the original triangle. If only one angle can be drawn under the condition, we say the condition determines a unique triangle. A triangle drawn under a condition that is known to determine a unique triangle will be identical to the original triangle. Moving on, each of the following problems gives two triangles. State whether the triangles are identical, not identical, or not necessarily identical. If the triangles are identical, give the triangle conditions that explain why, and write a triangle correspondence that matches the sides and angles. If the triangles are not identical, explain why. If it is not possible to definitely determine whether the triangles are identical, write the triangles are not necessarily identical and explain your reasoning. Okay, so here's how I approach these types of problems. I label what is given. So angle A has one arc. Angle Y has one arc. So those are congruent angles. Angle A and angle Y are congruent. Angle C is marked with two arcs. Angle Z is marked with two arcs. So that is an angle congruence. So there's my angles. Angle AC is between angle A and angle C, and therefore that is ASA. So this is angle, side, angle. An angle, two angles with an included side. Over here, we have the side ZY with a mark on it congruent to this side AC. So therefore that is a side, and we also have angle, side, angle over here. And since this is the same as this, then the triangles are identical. And I'm going to say by this angle, side, angle theorem, ASA. So they're identical by ASA. And then it says if they are, write a triangle correspondence. So I would say triangle A. Okay, let's try that again. All right, so I would say triangle ABC, and we could name it CBA, we can name it ACB. It does not matter how you name the first triangle, as long as you name the triangle that you're saying they're identical to in the same order. Okay, so triangle ABC matches the triangle And A had 1 mark, so Y has 1 mark. So they have to go first. So since A has 1 mark and Y has 1 mark, they are first in the naming. And then, since I said B, and that's the angle that's not marked by anything, I have to go over to this triangle and use the angle that's not marked by anything next, which is X. And then by elimination, Z comes last. So it's angle ABC is identical to angle, triangle ZXY. I'm sorry, YXZ. I went in the wrong order there. 1 arc, no arcs, 2 arcs. 1 arc, no arcs, 2 arcs. Okay, our parts correspond. Okay, moving on to page 2. These are exercises, so pause the video, see if you can do these. I gave you that one example, and then unpause the video and check your answers. And we'll get started here. So I'm going to start by looking at the 2 triangles, and I see that angle D has 1 arc and angle G has 1 arc, so I'm going to put an A there, meaning that that is an angle that's marked congruent. And then I don't see any other angles marked congruent, but DE is a side with one mark, which means that it's congruent to IG with 1 mark, so there's a side. And then DF has 2 marks, and HG have 2 marks, so DF is congruent to HG, so those are sides. And there we have it, and now I just go in order, going around the triangle, and I have SAS, side with 2 sides with an included angle, and then SAS over here, 2 sides with an included angle. Since they're the same, then I have identical triangles. By side angle side. And a triangle correspondence would be triangle, and I'm going to start with this first one. Does not matter how you name it, I'll name it alphabetically. I'll go DEF. Triangle DEF. Whatever you name the first one does not matter as long as the corresponding sides match the second one. So I could have said DFE, I could have called it EFD, I could have called it EDF, it does not matter. But now I have to write the letter that corresponds to D. D had 1 mark, G has 1 mark, so triangle G comes first. And then E, I look at E, there's no mark, but it's at the end away from the angle that we know on the side with 1 mark. So I went from the angle with 1 arc down the side with 1 mark to E. So if I start here at G and I go down the side with 1 mark, I end up at I, and that is my next. So E corresponds to I, and then finally H. So how do you know that? Well, then I look at the side DE. DE goes from the angle we mark congruent down the side with 1 mark. Angle GI is going this way from the angle we knew down the side that we know is congruent to DE. So that is the correspondence. Okay, number 2. All right, angle A has 1 mark. Angle D has 1 mark. So I will put an A here and I will put an A here, knowing that the angles are marked congruent. Angle C has 1 mark, 2 arcs. Angle F have 2 arcs, so that is another angle congruence. And then AR is over here, that is a side, but DF is in between my 2 given angles over here. So this correspondence is angle, angle, side. 2 angles and 1 side that's opposite one of the given angles. And this one is angle, side, angle, which is 2 given angles and an included side. AAS is not the same as ASA. So these 2 triangles are not necessarily identical. Okay, number 3. No angles marked, no angles marked. AB, ZY. Those are sides. CB has 2 marks. XZ has 2 marks. Those are given sides. AC has 3. XY has 3. Those are given sides. So this is by side, 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 and this is also side, side, side. So these are identical triangles. By S, S, S. Name the first triangle correspondence. I'm just going to go in alphabetical order. ABC. Corresponds to the triangle. And I want to go in the right order. So if I started at A and went to B, I want to go down the side with 1 mark. So I'm going to start at, is it Y or is it Z? So are we going to go Y, Z, X? So we went from A, which is between 3 and 1. So we have to, so do you see that angle A is formed by a side with 3 marks and 1 mark. Angle Y is an angle formed by the side with 1 mark and 3 marks. So A corresponds to Y. And then I went this way down the side with 1 mark, so I must go this way down the side with 1 mark, and that brings me to Z. And then by elimination, X comes last. Okay, so the correspondence is triangle ABC corresponds to the triangle YZX. And they're identical by side, side, side. Okay, on to page 3. In example 2 and exercise 4 through 6, 3 pieces of information are given for triangle ABC and triangle XYZ. Draw freehand the 2 triangles. Do not worry about scale and mark the given information. If the triangles are identical, give a triangle correspondence that matches the equal angles and equal sides. Explain your reasoning. Okay, so it does say to draw freehand, so they're saying we don't have to be accurate. So the first thing I'm going to do is AB equals XZ. So I'm going to draw, I'll do it down here. Here's AB. And that equals a triangle over here, XZ. They're equal, so I mark congruence. Okay, that part is done. Now it says AC equals XY. So now if I draw an angle up, or a side up here and put C here, it is going to be congruent to a side here. And that is going to be Y here. And this is congruent to that. So that's what this is. Angle A is congruent to angle X. Okay? So, since this side equals this side, and this side equals this side, and they have an included angle, that is SAS. So there is only one way to finish this triangle, and that is to draw CB down to, or C down to B and Y down to Z. And we will know that those 2 sides are congruent because by side angle side, these 2 triangles are corresponding, or they're congruent. So it says if the triangles are identical, give a triangle correspondence that matches equal angles to equal sides. Explain your reasoning. So we have SAS, so they are identical. Identical triangles by the side angle side theorem. And then I would say triangle ABC corresponds to the triangle, and since A is congruent to X, I'm going to draw X, and if I go B, that's this side here, so it's XZY. Okay, so now in exercises 4 through 6, you need to do what I just did in that example. So pause the video, try these, and then come back and check your answers. All right, here we go. So it says angle A is congruent to angle Z. So in order to draw an angle congruent to another angle, I need sides. So I'm going to start with my sides that they gave. So I'm going to draw AB. So here's AB. And it's congruent to YZ. Okay, this is a little longer, but remember it said freehand, so we don't have to be exact. So AB is congruent to YZ. As long as we mark it correct, then the reader knows what we're doing. All right, now it's saying angle A is congruent to angle Z. So if I draw an angle like so, then I have to draw the same angle over here at Z. That would be congruent, like that. Now it says angle B is congruent to angle Y. So if let's just make this easy. Let's do a 90 degree. So if I drew a 90 degree angle like this, and then extended the sides like so, then I have two triangles that are congruent. Obviously, I didn't do that correctly, or it's freehand, so it doesn't matter. I'm not going to change it. This should have been a little bit longer, but now we were told angle B is congruent to angle Y. So I could do that, or I told you they were going to be 90 degrees, so I drew 90 degree angles, so that's also a congruence marker. So there we have it. There's our two triangles, and I have an angle, I have a side, and I have an angle, and the side's included, so that's ASA. Over here I have an angle, a side, and an angle, the side's included, that's ASA. So the triangles are identical by ASA. And then the triangle correspondence would be triangle AB, and they didn't tell us what to name the third side. I'll just call it C. And we have YZ, so this must be X. Okay? So I have triangle ABC corresponds to triangle, and angle A is congruent to angle Z, so Z comes first. Angle B is 90, Y is 90, so Y comes next, and then ZY X. And I forgot my triangle symbol there, so let me just fix this. So triangle ABC corresponds to triangle ZYX. Okay, on to page 4. All right, so I like doing sides first. It's easier. So I'm looking at the sides that are equal, BC. So I'm going to draw BC. Boom. BC. Okay, and put a congruent marker there. And then XY. So zoop, XY, congruent to BC. A little bit long, so I'll just do that. All right. Remember, this is just sketches. All right, so then I go on and I'm going to choose one of the angles. I don't have an angle here yet, A, so I won't do that yet. I have a B, I have a Y at the ends of these segments, so I will do this first. So angle B, I'll do here, and I'll do angle Y here, and they are congruent. Check. Now it says angle A is congruent to angle Z. So in other words, if I drew an angle here, it's got to be congruent to this here. So I'm going to put 2 marks there and 2 marks here. This side is going to continue down until it gets to C. And this side is going to continue down until it gets to X. There are my 2 triangles. Remember, this is just a sketch, but there's our correspondence. And now I'm going to label all my components. Now, first, before I do that, though, I didn't name my last angle. So this is angle A, and this is angle Z. All right, now I'm going to label my correspondence. Angle B has 1 mark. Angle Y has 1 mark. They are congruent. That is an angle, and that is an angle. BC is a side mark congruent to XY, which is also a side. And then angle A has two markers, so that is another angle. And this up here is at two markers, and that is another angle. So when I go around the triangle, I have an angle marked, and a side. So that's angle, angle, with an opposite side to a given angle. That's angle, angle, side. And then I have angle, angle, side over here. And since they're the same, this is the same as this, then the triangles are identical. Okay, by angle, angle, side. Triangle correspondence will be, I'll go in alphabetical order first, ABC, and then be careful to label my corresponding parts. Angle A has two marks, angle Z has two marks, Z comes first. Angle B has one mark, angle A has one mark. Angle Y, I marked it as an A, it's angle Y, so that's Y. So ZY, and then X by elimination. So triangle ABC corresponds to triangle ZYX. All right, hopefully you're getting the hang of this. One last example. All right, I have two angles, I have two angles, I have two sides. I like doing the sides first. I will put a side BC here and put a congruent marker on it. I will put a side XY or XZ over here, and I will put a congruent marker on it. That's done. Now I'm going to look. I don't have an A, but okay, I don't have an A here, but I have a Z here. I have a B here, but I don't have a Y. So this is going to be a little bit different. Doesn't matter which one we do first. I'll do angle A and angle Z first. So I will do this. Angle Z's got one mark. Okay. So you can't do this on paper, but what I'm going to do, just so that they're close, is I'm going to draw this same angle here, and then I'm going to move it over and then put it somewhere else. So, and kind of try to line it up with one of the others. So maybe like right there, if I drew that angle, that would continue down to B and that would continue down to C. I just want to make sure that these two angles are congruent. So you might want to do that with, they call it patty paper, and then trace it onto it. So this angle is congruent to that angle, and this is my angle A hanging out here in space, and then I can extend this down to here, so that's my side AB, and I'll change the color of this side to green, and there's my triangle. So angle B has to be congruent to angle Y. So I'll put two markers there. And this has to extend up. And notice C's obtuse a little bit. So that would probably come out like this. So there's my two triangles. Okay. I just wanted to see how far I could go with that, or I could have tried to make that the same length, so maybe to here. Alright, so anyway, this one's a little tougher. So this is my angle Y right. Angle Y is congruent to angle B. Oh, hang on. Let me get rid of this. So this is what we're given so far. BC is congruent to XZ. Angle A is congruent to angle Z. And then angle B is congruent to angle Y. So angle Y is up here in space somewhere, and it has to be congruent to this. So I just drew that there, and then I'll move this over and rotate it. Again, and it has to go somewhere so that this side lines up at a point where that would. So maybe right about there. So if I extended this side up and then extended this side down, and there's our two triangles. So angle B is congruent to angle Y. So here's angle Y. And since angle B has two markers, I'll put two markers on Y. Angle A is congruent to Z. Angle B is congruent to Y. And BC is congruent to XC. So there's our diagram. That one was tricky. So now I'm going to label this. This is an angle, this is an angle, and this is a side. That's an angle with its opposite side to a given angle that's not included. It would have to be this side over here to be in between A's. So this is angle, angle, side. This is an angle, this is an angle, and this is a side not included. So that is angle, angle, side. Okay, but in this one's a little different. I can't just say that these two triangles are identical. Okay? And the reason is, look at the order I'm going in. Angle, angle, side. I went with one congruent marker, and then two congruent markers, and then the congruent side. Over here, if I go angle, angle, side, it is two congruent markers followed by one congruent marker followed by the side. So notice that I have one arc, two arcs, side. Two arcs, one arc, side. So we're not going the right way. So this one I would say not necessarily identical. Oops. Not necessarily identical triangles. Okay, and I explained why. Okay, they're both angle, angle, side, but the markers don't agree. Not the same order. Okay, that is the end of lesson 13. Review the lesson summary and go do your problem set.